The first Submariner was actually indeed introduced to the public in 1954 at the Basel Watch Fair.
Without a date.
Yeah.
Without a date.
And the watch industry really hasn't been the same since. I think we have a picture here of the 6200. Okay, this one was actually sold at Phillips auction house for 465 grand in 2019. I bet you're gutted you didn't buy that one, Spencer. Perhaps you, Spence, can have a look, you boys, and tell me, like, looking at this watch, this was the, does that have the Mercedes hands? Is that right?
Yeah, from what I can see, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the Mercedes hands. And with the early ones, Paul, which you would obviously know with this, no shoulder guards.
Yeah, I just want to qualify something that I said a little while back, Spencer, is that when we go back to watches of this sort of period, what did you say that watch sold for, Gavin?
That sold for 465,000 in 2019 at auction.
When we go back pre-5513, pre that to the 5512 and back even further, etc., the 1680s going backwards, I would treat each watch as an individual inspection case and research, because there are so many different variations. There are so many of these watches that have been played with over the years. Now, if someone walked that watch into your shop tomorrow, I don't know about you, but I'm going to hold my hands up and admit straight away, I know that it was worth a lot of money, but I wouldn't know it was worth that much money.
Sure.
I'd have to do some
with
further
these
research.
Things, Paul, I mean, I have had quite a few over the times, and like you say, the earlier one, like the 5508, no shoulder guards. Then you got the 5510, 12, and the 5513 was the more popular one. I've got one here to show the viewers. When these sort of things come in, it does take a little while. You've got to look at the hands, the case, because
everything.
The other difficulty with some of these is that the quality going back in those times was not amazing. So sometimes you had a Friday afternoon watch where the engraver was a little bit tired and the O's looked like zeros or eights weren't quite perfect. And we look at them now in 2021 and say, oh, not very happy with that. You and I know if we get in a watch that's a year old, you look at the rehaul, you look at the engraving, you match the card, job done, you're quite happy with it. Going back to these older pieces is really time-consuming, that the dial hasn't been messed with. Again, you'd expect the dial to be not perfect, but you much prefer the dial not to be perfect than a service dial. And this is what people don't always understand with these things. They just look and say, well, one sold for X and mine must be worth that. But sometimes some of these special pieces are gloss dials, gilt dials, rail tracks, floating Daytona, all this different terminology. And as we know, some of the mistakes are what makes things worth a lot of money.
I was going to ask exactly that. If there was a mistake made on a Rolex watch, you said about the print that the O's were slightly bigger. So is that a bit like the golden egg? If you come across one of those, or that's something to be sort of marveled.
Absolutely, Gavin. I mean, there was the Zenith where you had the floating Daytona. Remember that, Paul? Where you had sort of three lines and they were all in line, and then there was a gap and Daytona, and that's what that was referred to. Of late, on the more modern pieces, the APH dial, where it's like Cosmograph, and there's a gap and APH. And all of these things that caused issues.
There's so many of them. That's the thing. I say, Gavin, it's a great question that you asked. The thing is there, what I was trying to explain, I don't know if it really made sense, but there are so many of these quirks. I mean, if we go back just to say the 16610 LV, the anniversary sub, I think from memory there are like 13 different dial variations.
Wow. Very,
very minor.
And then on that, Paul, you got bezel, haven't you? The Fat Four that everyone goes on about.
And this is what I'm saying is, Spencer, is that when a Submariner came into me, if it was something even remotely out of the unusual, I treated every single watch as a completely new investigative case, so that I would investigate that watch, that model reference number, precisely. You kind of build up a whole wealth of knowledge around this one watch that you have in your hand, and that's how you find out if it's really rare, if it's just rare, if it's super rare. Because there are no doubt examples of the watch that you just showed us earlier on that sold for just under £500,000. There will be other examples of that watch from a similar sort of period that won't be worth anywhere near that amount of money.